Hi Steph, thank
Hi.
you for doing this interview for Inspiring Northeast TV. Hopefully it will inspire a young person with your life experiences, which have
Wow.
been varied and many.
They have been.
Do you want to summarise the sort of things you've been doing through your life?
Right from the start?
Yes, go on.
Goodness me. Well, I was thinking about my childhood. I was a funny kid because I was the youngest, and the youngest is, and there was 4 years between us. So, and I was kind of very much in the moment. I was a child that was busy with what I was doing, very much wrapped up in what I was doing. And I was quite sociable. When I was about 3, my mum tells me the story of being 3 and suddenly discovering that I had disappeared. And they were searching the streets everywhere round about for where had our Stephanie gone, And they eventually found me on the council estate. I'd gone down into the very, very rough council estate which adjoined where we lived in West Newcastle. And I'd inveigled myself into the household and had made friends with everybody and got everybody's names and knew Auntie June and Uncle Fred, and was sitting on somebody's knee combing their hair, entertaining them all when my mum found me. So I was kind of that sort of a kid, just sort of got on with it and was very sociable. And I used to apparently say things like, that's life, at the age of 3. And I've kind of always been a bit like that, busy with what I was doing. So I've never had a long-term vision. I've never had a plan, a life's plan. I've always gone, oh, is this what I'm doing now then? And so things, and I've just serendipitously done things. So I was going to be a maths specialist, and I was going to do a degree in computer science and or information science, which was what was happening. That was late 60s. And imagine if I'd done that, and I would have got into computer programming, and I would have had a completely different world, wouldn't I?
Very different.
However, what came along serendipitously was I fell in love with somebody, and I'd had enough of living at home, and I'd had enough of my parents, and I decided I wanted to be independent, and I thought marriage would give me independence. So I got married.
And did it give you independence?
How old was I? I just turned 19. It was a funny time in my life because a few months before I was getting married, my dad had a terrible car accident and had dreadful head injuries. He was unconscious for a long time in hospital. And I hadn't liked him very much. That sounds awful. I hadn't got on with him. I'd once found him kissing my friend's mother, and I didn't trust him. Also, he was a gambler. And when I was about 14, he'd presented my mother with debts. Now we're talking about 1965, and it was thousands of pounds worth of debt. And in 1965, you could buy several houses for thousands of pounds. So that was a bit of a shock. And I said to my mother at the time, I said, we'll leave him, we don't want to stay with him, because I was the only one left at home at that time. My brother and sister were away. And I said, come on, we'll just leave him, we'll have him. She said, no, I'm going to sort this out. And so every month when the money came, I would watch my father handing over his pay to my mother. We would sit around the table, jam jars on the table, labelled, gas, electricity, the debt. But my mother paid it off in about 2 years. She paid this debt off. They managed to buy the house, which had been a rented house that we were in. So we'd always been, poor, really, I've never had a new frock and all of that kind of stuff. I didn't think that was a problem. It just was how it was, you know. I'm not going, oh, poor me, I didn't have a new frock. But that was just, when I look back, I think, I never had a new frock. We didn't have the money. I had new shoes. I always had decent shoes, but everything else, hand-me-down. So that was quite shocking, and I had hated my father for that, because I thought it was very bad that he treated my mother and the family like that and wasted. So I couldn't even, for years and years and years, I couldn't even buy a raffle ticket. I was so hated the idea of gambling so much. Anyway, so when I got married, it was in a strange place because, oh no, hang on. What I was going to say was, the night my father, because he had a car accident, and he was in Chollerford actually on the military road, and he was taken to Hexham Hospital, and then because his injuries were so severe he was taken to the general. And the knock on the door, the policeman saying, is this Ernest May's house? You know, you sort of, so we all went. My husband-to-be was there as well, and my mother and we went to the hospital and sat for ages and ages and ages and ages trying to find out what was going to happen. And that was a life-changing moment for me, because I sat there thinking my father's going to die and I'm going to feel guilty because I've been horrible to him. I could cry actually telling you this. And I thought about it and I thought about it, and I really went deep into a deep internal place. Deep thinking internal place, which I don't very often do, because I very often just get on with what's happening. And I decided I never ever wanted to feel like that ever again in my life, and I was determined never to do anything that I would feel guilty about.
So what does that look like in life every day?
I try really hard to act authentically. I mean, I know I've done some daft things, but I've always done them authentically. And I really quite got into existentialism in my 20s, and thinking about what matters is what you do and why you do it. So I've really tried. I haven't always succeeded, but I've really tried.
You've done some amazing things. Do you want to just give a few highlights of the sort of things you've tried with, you know, or accomplished?
What have I accomplished? Oh my goodness. Well, I chose eventually, because I got married so young and we didn't have any money, I decided I had to get a job. So I wasn't going to do information science or computer or anything. I went and worked in a bank, and that was quite interesting. And I learned quite a lot about income tax and bookkeeping and accounts and stuff like that, because it was not a banking branch, it was a trustee in income tax. And I worked for an insurance company, and that was quite interesting because I was doing engineering insurance, so I learned about electric overhead travelling cranes and compressors and all sorts of things like that. So that was quite good. And actually I learned everything I knew about electricity by working on the electric counter in Woolworths when I was 15. So, you know. But then I thought, this isn't enough. I want to do something. I don't want to have children, but I've got a lot of love. So I want to do something for needy children. That's what I want to do in the world. So I trained to be a teacher. And when I qualified, I was a maths specialist, and I had done middle school. And at that time you were interviewed by the authority, you weren't interviewed by a school. So I was interviewed by somebody from the secondary sector and somebody from the primary sector, and they said, do you want to be a maths teacher in the secondary school, or do you want to be a teacher of everything in a primary school? And, you know, in my training time, I had got very absorbed in language acquisition and the importance of development of language. And I'd read all those Basil Bernstein things and the uses of literacy, Richard Hoggart and things like that. And I really got into all that class stuff, and I said I want to work in the most deprived school in Newcastle, and I want to work in a primary school because I want to work with the whole child. And that's what I've really spent my teaching life doing, thinking about how to enable disadvantaged children. It's very much as you have with, doing different things, obviously. And it's quite interesting because nobody, when I think about my teacher training, 3 years and you could write in a sixpence what you know, and you start to find out. I had read a lot, and nobody had ever talked about singing, and I'd never really thought of myself as a singer. My grandfather had told me when I was 6, I don't know, he said, "My little flower of the flock, don't you sing because you can't." Oh, gosh, great. So actually, in later years, when I was doing lots and lots and lots of training with nursery nurses and primary school teachers, I tell them that story because you're working with people who think they can't sing. I mean, what a way to... It's just the worst thing you can possibly do, isn't it? Anyway, I discovered that I could sing, and that actually song is a fantastic way of learning language. And very early on, I remember the girl, she was called Dawn, and she was really poor, and I think it must have been my first year teaching, it might have been, or maybe it was my second year teaching, and they were having lots of school choirs in the city hall. Do you remember those days?
Yes,
in the 70s.
Sing for pleasure.
And yes, and we were doing Christmas carols. So I decided to take it on. I wasn't the music coordinator, but I was interested, and so I decided to take it on. And I saw which children were keen, and I printed out all the words of them. Do you remember in those days you had to turn the handle on the band machine? Write it all out by hand and turn the handle.
The purple smudges.
And then send them all home, hopefully that the parents would, and poor Dawn, I gave her hers. I knew she wouldn't be able to read it, and I knew the parents would help, and all the rest of it. But we practiced, and we practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced our songs. And then when we came to do the performance in the City Hall, I thought Dawn had better stand next to me because I didn't think she'd be able to manage. And I heard her sing the words of the Calypso Carol. I heard her sing, "Shepherds swiftly from your stupor rise, and you could have knocked me down with a feather." And I thought, this is the way. So that was when I started using song, and to develop language and remember language. And we used to make up songs with the words that I wanted kids to learn. We would make up songs. So I've been doing that a long time. So I think that's quite a powerful thing. And I think since that sort of went on, you just quietly do that in your classroom, don't you? You just get on and do it. And then as a head, I could do that kind of thing with my whole school. It was fantastic. And then moving on to work at Sage Gateshead and to start doing that kind of work, I think that's really one of the most powerful things that I've done. And I think I have had parents come to me and say, "It's changed my family life, the work that you've done with us, Steph." I mean,
wonderful.
And that's really just warm your heart. Where am I? I'm back in the 70s.
A lot of work with young people. And so when did that transition into sort of nature and ecology sort of happen?
Well, I started off teaching in Elswick Road Primary School, and then I moved to Montague. we know that school. And that was really tough. And I'd read some research, oh gosh, I can't remember the woman's name, Jenny something, about the time. Do you remember the Kingham report? Yeah. And basically it was kind of saying things like parents shouldn't interfere with the teaching of reading. They should leave it up to teachers because they might be saying all the wrong things, you know. And I didn't think that was right. And even as a young teacher in Elsick, I used to go out in the playground in the evenings and talk to parents about what had happened during the day, you know. And I thought that was really important. I was the only teacher who did. Went out and actually actively sought out talking to parents. And in fact, it was the same in every school I ever taught in. I was the only one who would be standing at the door and who would be saying, "Oh, I must tell you what such and such has done." "Oh, I'm really sorry, I have to tell you that," you know. And just so they know what's going on and they're engaged in it, and it doesn't matter whether they can read themselves or what. And it was it's a really famous bit, and it's falling out of my ear. Belford reading. Jenny something. She did a project where she was trying to demonstrate that if you got parents to do reading activities with children, whether or not they were great literacy readers or whatever. I'm going to come on to the nature thing in a minute, but this was really to demonstrate that there was a causal link between parents listening to children read and their reading improving. And I just thought, yes, I know this must be true. And so I did a pilot scheme with my class. I was still a class teacher at this point, and it's fantastic. And of course I got to know all the parents, and I decided that what these children needed was to get out of Blakelow and get out into the country. And at the time I was, my boyfriend, I wasn't married by this time, it was my boyfriend Steve and I were great walkers, and hadn't got any outdoor pursuits, hadn't got bits of paper, hadn't got any risk assessments, hadn't got anything at all except a pair of walking boots and maps and enthusiasm. And we'd always been little bits of walkers. And I suppose one of the things we did with my dad when he was recovering from his head injuries was a rambling club, so I got into rambling a bit then. And I got into the idea that these children who, you know, never go anywhere should have, so I started organising little trips out at a weekend, and I got engaged with the local youth group, Kestrels, I think they were called, and they had a minibus, and you could get the minibus and pile kids into the minibus and take them up to the Roman wall and have a walk on the Roman wall. And I would just get my boyfriend to help and my mum and dad to come and help, you know, and just anybody I could to come. Nobody had any DB thingamies, whatever it is now. And, but we just got on and did lovely stuff with the kids, and I ended up organising, did big fundraise, and organised to take to hire equipment and hire minibuses and a minibus and take a group of children for a week camping in the Cheviot.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
Dig latrines and everything. Yeah, it was amazing. And it was, that was a really, that was such a powerful experience, and made a big thing of it. One of the children I'd had the most terrible time with him all year. You know, he should never have been in a classroom, really. These were year four, second year juniors. And really, the classroom wasn't the place for this child, but my God, the Cheviots was the place for him. He was amazing. And he would, you know when you take a dog for a walk and it goes like this, that was what he was like. He walked up and down and up and down and there and back. And, you know, and one time and you know who I took my boyfriend, Steve, and I took them, and I needed another one, so I roped in my friend Simon, who was a doctor. But in fact, the only injury we had was when we were playing rounders, and Simon flung the rounders back behind him and gave a giant concussion, but it was all right, there was a doctor on hand. And I made big stories about it, and I made a huge display in the photographs and told the stories, and we got the children to, and although they weren't in my class anymore, every lunchtime they would come and they would lean on my desk and they would want to talk about the holiday. And in fact, about 15 years later, Steve bumped into David, the boy who should never have been in the classroom, on the metro. And he recognised him straight away, and they got talking. And you know what he talked about? He talked about the holiday and the tributes. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And it just, and so I started doing just out of interest, and it wasn't really until I came to live here at Blaydon that I had land. In fact, we didn't have the land when I first came here, because I came here in 2001 when I retired from teaching. And it was just a house and garden, and I started working at Sage Gateshead. But the lovely thing about that was you'd drive to work through the streets of me sort of nice frock, and do that work, and then come back, and then boots on, and you're in the countryside. And actually, it's really, it's a powerfully healthy thing to do and to be in. And we had the opportunity to buy the land in 2007, so we decided we were going to be farmers, and then everything from there has been just serendipitous. It just happened that this wood was attached to the big, because land is cut up into parcels, and we bought 2 parcels of land, and one of the parcels happened to have a wood attached, because the farmers don't want the wood, it's no good to them. You get no subsidy, you can't do anything with it, you can't keep animals in it, grow a crop in it. So there we had this wood, and what a resource, and the wood, it's been such a joy. And it took about a year to clear the rubbish out, there must have been 5 tons of rubbish in there. Bits of old collar and furniture and shocking stuff, beer cans. And we were going to have a woodland burial site, that was the idea. And try and develop it as a local resource. And we started a little group of local friends who came and helped us do some clearing out, and to try and get ideas from them about what they wanted. It didn't kind of gel, it didn't come together. People were lovely and helpful with clearing and stuff like that, but then the camping happened. Was an idea, and then it just grew, and then it became my responsibility, and then I had to not work full time anymore because I was so busy. And then I happened to be doing a training session. So this is a magical moment. When I worked at Sage Gateshead and I was leading on early years and family learning, I did a lot of training, and most of the training was with nursery teachers and reception class teachers, definitely pre-Key Stage 1 most of the work was, and to try and get them to feel confident themselves about singing, using song in developing language, and using song and movement in developing physicality and getting a sense of pulse and rhythm, because that impacts on acquisition of language and reading and stuff. So and I was doing a training session with a group of nursery nurses, and one of them said, I was teaching them how to make up songs. Because I've got quite a few tricks about how you can make songs up easily and with the language or use the children's language. And I was describing that in this session, and this woman said, that'd be fantastic when we're doing our forest schools. And I said, tell me about your forest schools. And that was at the point that I discovered that every school in Gateshead was having somebody do forest school training, and it had become like the new fashion. And I said, That's interesting. I've got a forest. And she came with her head to visit, and we had a look at it, and they did risk assessments, and they were our first forest school. And you know, that teacher, that head moved to a different school, and this school she'd been in unfortunately stopped coming. But the new school that she moved to, they're still coming to this day, and that's probably from 12 years ago.
Wow. So what we'll do now is we'll take a tour of the farm and have a look around, and we'll see some of the footage, and then I'll ask you a question about where you're going, what next.
Right.
So here we are. We're going to set off now and have a look at round the farm.
So here it doesn't look much at the minute, but this is 900 trees healed in
Tree planting for a hedge.
Until we can get them planted in our what's going to be 300 metres of new hedging with all sorts in it, a real lovely mixture. Dog rose and crabapple, hawthorn, field maple, rowan. The dogs are enjoying it. Good girl, Daisy. This is the beginning of the hedging project. So we've got 900 trees. This looks like we've planted the first 40 today, but I'll say we've had some young people who are student friends of Tom, who lives in our wood, and they've been on. This is what they've done today. These are all rowan trees. Here we go. This is the most beautiful hay. We had to buy in this year because we've got slightly too many cattle, but we bought it from a farmer just up the way. He doesn't put any crap on his land either, so it's good haylage. And when he delivered it, I said to him, "Oh gosh, that hay smells beautiful," and he said, "It smells of summer, that's why." I thought that was really lovely. This is Blanche, the mother of Trouble. This is Jenny B, happily chewing the cud. Now there's lots of people think that we shouldn't keep cattle and that people shouldn't eat beef and everybody should be vegan, but there's quite a lot of issues around that. These cattle eat grass, they're not given any strange chemicals, and because they eat grass they don't make as much methane, and the meat has got more omega-3 in than fish, says Isabella Tree, but I'm not sure whether that's true. Somebody coming across the field. But the thing is, these animals, they've got loads and loads and loads of space, loads of grass. They live a very natural life. And the food miles are very, very low. It's all very well saying we should all be vegan, but if you look at the labels on vegan food in the supermarket, for instance, the stuff that's been flown right round the world. And that's no good for anybody, is it? I don't think we should eat New Zealand lamb, that's for sure, because that's stuff that's been brought halfway around the world. Oh, here comes Trouble. Anyway, that's my little lecture about the environmental impact of beef. There they go. That's the little boy with his tag in his ear. That's Very clever sew a cross mum. I don't mean that she's cross. How's the lambs? Hiya, this is Bo Peep. Hello, Bo Peep. Hiya. Look at that one, she's stamping at me again. I love these sheep. Look at her. I bottle fed her. She's a wonderful mother now, so that's really good. They're very tame, as you can see. So the top there, he's actually very, very posh. He's a Blaydon, quite an ancient breed. Listen to those cows. This one's a cross. The mother was a Jacob blue-faced Leicester cross, and she's been crossed with, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think it was I think it was a blue-faced Leicester. We had blue-faced Leicester for 2 years, different one, and a Blaydon 2 years. She's a little stowaway cross. I'm looking for Bo Peep. I mean, sorry, Boo's down here. There's Boo. Hello. Just another one that was bottle fed. Hello, gorgeous. You gonna come say hi? Hello. Hiya. Aren't you lovely? Lovely girl. Oh, it's been horrific mud. Anyway, I'm going to have a little walk across to the wood and see how things are over there. So here's the dam. There used to be a much lower dam and then it broke. So I decided that we needed to recreate the wetland area that there was here before. I should think there'll be a variety of wild birds, all sorts of things. Now this had all dried up when the dam, which is here that I'm standing on, broke about 15 years ago, and this had always been a little shallow wetland. Anyway, I decided a year gone November that it was time we had the wetland back, and he built up this dam. It's amazing. He built it, of course, in his very Irish way, a little bit higher than it had been before. So in fact, there's quite a lot of these trees have fallen in, and we need to pull those out really to let some light in, because the best thing for a wetland is not just wet but a bit of light. It's a lovely day, a bit of sunshine, it's so good for the soul. More people need to have access to the outdoors like this. We'd be a happier society, I think, if more people could just be somewhere beautiful outside. There, look, there's some new growth over there. All these trees here, they're a bit close together, so we could thin these out, give them some air to breathe. It's a life's work. You do nothing else. Now here, this doesn't look quite so beautiful, does it? Because it's all been taken down, but it's because this is the whole strip that runs underneath the power lines, and these are
very high voltage power lines, and these trees were getting rather close, so it was very dangerous. So the electricity company get a team in to come and take all of this down. So it doesn't look beautiful at the minute. It just was happened last summer, in July, end of July, beginning of August. And it makes great habitat. And also because the light gets through to the ground, all those seedlings and little things that didn't have a chance to grow start to peep through. So in 5 years, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10 years. And look at this, I love this. It's a real crooked oak, isn't it? Amazing shape. So what we do with this is we take out trees that are damaged or are falling, been blown over, and then we try and replant. Actually quite a lot of the replanting happens quite naturally. Look at all those, there's all those little beeches over there. There's lots and lots of little oaks. Yes, these are oaks here. Now look, they're all too close together, so they'll not survive. But what we're thinking of doing is coming up with the JCB and digging them up, the root ball, and making another little oak forest in the first field nearer the house. So that's exciting. We'll not see the benefit of that ourselves though, will we? What do they say about if you're planning for the next 100 years, educate a child and plant a tree? Good thought.
So Steph, looking ahead, you've got so many assets. You've got the forest, you've got this beautiful land and the animals, you've got a learning and teaching centre called the Loft. You're very sociable, you love to help young people and families. Once this COVID's over, what are you going to be doing next?
Well, a bit of story that starting from that one school coming and doing their forest school here, there's then now lots of other people come. We've had many people often bring people with mental health problems, adults with mental health problems, just to come and be in woodland. It's, and we have various people who do bushcraft work and forest school work, bringing different groups of children. So there's quite a little programme. Now, I don't have to run the programme, I just can provide the space. And people pay a very small amount, it's not very much, just £1 or £2 per head, depending. And that kind of goes into our tree planting pot. And we've got all of this. My vision, really, if I could be persuaded to have one for a minute, won't last long. We've got all of these outbuildings here that are full of stuff, there's one that's full of wood, and there's paint, and there's a welding shed with a motorbike in it, and there's a garage, and there's I could see a time when we weren't doing the work that we're doing now and didn't need all of those. And we could make them be little units, and people could run different things from those different units. I'd like to get a mental health charity involved somehow in this. Because when we die, I want to leave a legacy, and Ike wants to leave a legacy here. If this is a unit, doesn't want it asset stripped. I want to leave a legacy of making space and opportunity for people to be outside, in woodland, understanding the earth.
Fantastic.
Making hotels for insects, all of those things. I wanted to be a resource for people. And I'm quite committed to, I know everybody keeps on going on and on and on about being vegan and not eating meat. I'm not convinced that's the way forward. I'm much more convinced that we should eat the kind of meat that we produce. Because our meat is grass-fed and it's not as harmful to the environment. But it fits in naturally. What matters is that you don't have hordes and hordes and hordes of animals commercially bred, land ploughed up to grow grain to feed to the animals. Duh, not sensible. Whereas if you have just a bit and a few, and obviously we'd have to have everybody eating a bit less meat, but it needs to be better meat and better produced meat. I think the most important thing is to remember, do you remember Small is Beautiful, that book that was written in about the 70s? Where, because people get into a thing that you have to expand and expand and expand, and actually sometimes in doing the expanding, it isn't like you really make any more money or do any, you know, it's just bigger. Whereas actually what we need to do is make Small be beautiful and make our food miles be low. And I think that's more important, and to have a balance.
That's a fantastic vision. So how can people help you with this?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'd like people to come and see and be and experience. I mean, we've had lots of people come with ideas that haven't fruited at all. People come with ideas and have wonderful, huge, amazing ideas and then disappear. They think, oh, I can't really manage to do all of that. Small is beautiful. I think I need people with small ideas. Somebody who could say, look, if I had this little shed, I could just do this. And little things.
I guess, like the farm, I guess if people come and visit, things will organically happen anyway.
Well, it all seems to have, everything that's happened has just happened, and word of mouth, it's got about, and things that people write on the internet, and Facebook posts and all other things. Mind, I've got some horrible Facebook posts when I've argued with people about obeying my rules, and my rules are really sensible, you know. They don't like to be told off by a woman, but usually in my experience.
No, not many do.
I can transmogrify into a headmistress at the drop of a hat.
Yes. So that sounds like a great life plan, and as you say, a legacy beyond. I mean, that's the best we can do, isn't it?
Yes, and we ourselves, him and me, we have to do a bit less, because we work all the time, and whilst I don't want to be sitting in a rocking chair and dying, you know, sometimes it's quite hard. Managing the animals is really hard. We need somebody living in our cottage who can help with all of that stuff. You know, we need a bit of help with the farm, and I need somebody. I'd love to find me the charity, find me the right mental health charity where they would come and they would see the opportunities here for working. We went, had a caravan for a while, and then I decided we weren't going to do caravanning anymore because I did all the work. It wasn't like having a holiday. Because in a caravan you have to say, no, you just sit down and read the paper while I sort everything out. Not enough room. And so I decided to give it away. So I posted it on the Free Cycle. And the people who got it in the end were a charity who were based in Durham called Lion something. we went and we took the caravan down there and managed to juggle it into the position where they wanted it. They wanted to use it as a quiet space for the people with mental health difficulties who wanted to be quiet to go and have their lunch, so they didn't have to have it with everybody else. They could just have a couple of people in the caravan.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really nice idea. So we went and had a look and took the caravan down and had a look. Lovely, they'd done a really good job. And they had lots of people with mental health issues involved in volunteering. And they had people with mental health difficulties coming and working, and they had a little bit of a garden that they worked on, and they'd made a scent garden and things like that. And we went to the cafe. They said we had to go and have a bacon sandwich and a cup of tea. So we said, well, that would be lovely. We went to have our bacon sandwich. And we got chatting to the young woman who was working in the cafe. And she said, I thought it was wonderful actually. She said, I have mental health difficulties, you know, and it's really good for me to come here and do this work. And it was so natural and open the way she talked about it. And I thought, isn't that important? People need to be able to speak about their mental health issues in that way, in an easy, natural way, and in a way where you can then support.
Well, mental health is for everybody, isn't it? I mean, it's health because we're talking about health.
Yes, but if somebody's saying, I have a problem with my mental
I
health.
suppose then it becomes a mental illness, yeah.
Yes.
But we all need to talk about mental health, definitely.
Mm-hmm. But I was very touched by that. You know, I could have, when I think about it, sometimes it makes me want to weep to think that they made a place where people are confident enough to be able to say, I've got a mental health problem, and know that everybody will go, oh, what can I do to help? Not, right, you know.
So I guess to complete the story, in where you started earlier was you were wanting to a burial plot. Have you had any more thoughts about that?
Well, we did actually start, because the point was that my mother had died, and I wanted to do a proper burial, and in fact it never did. Ashes are still in a jar. But we had the people I had to do a funeral were called Go As You Please funerals. And they were really good. You know, you could hand everything from a glass couch to a milk cart, you know, for whatever. And they were great. We had the wicker coffin out on the lawn there and wove it with ivies and things like that because it was the winter time. And the guy came with just an ordinary people carrier, and we handled the coffin in. Yeah, I made him wear a stripy jumper. I said everybody had to wear bright colours because my mother was a very bright, colourful person. She quite often used to wear shell suits of an appalling pink and purple. And I can remember my son saying to her one time, "Oh, Jean, I can't hear you. Your trousers are too loud." So anyway, I even took to the funeral a great bag of bright coloured silk scarves to give to people who hadn't got anything bright on. And
yes, I remember being at the creme.
and we discussed what we discussed with him what was and that there was no woodland burial site in Gateshead. So he looked at it and we started the work on it. We got a friend of ours who's had worked in the bureaucracy of the council to start doing the paperwork. And after some considerable time, he came to us and said, "There's no way I can wade through this paperwork. It's impossible." So we kind of gave that idea.
So you need, on your wish list, you need somebody who can wade through the paperwork, I guess.
Yes, because there was no way, we didn't know. It's all about water courses and bodies and things. And what happens if things die? What happens if a deer dies?
I guess it's part of all the human and natural cycle, isn't it? So where do you want to finish this conversation?
Well, I don't know. I too, what I'd like people to be thinking about. Let me think. You can't do everything, and you can only affect the bit that you touch. And we used to call that the personalist political, didn't we, in the 70s. I think that's a very important philosophy, because quite often it's easy to think these things are so huge, there's so many things to do, it's all so massive. What can I do? Well, what you can do is live the best you possibly can with the best authenticity, and thinking about how what you do and what you think and what you believe can affect other people. So I would like people who want to be part of that to come and help us have more ideas about how we spread the word, because we need, there's lots and lots of different things. I think we need political change, and we need to think about how we address the climate issues. And I was very involved with Transition West Gateshead, of course. I haven't managed that over the last year because too many Zoom meetings. And issues in society and the health of people after this terrible period of lockdown. I don't know what I can do, but together we can do so much more. And if people, let's have ideas, let's see what we can do. We've got a beautiful space here. We can do gatherings of all sorts.
To champion the northeast people and places, really, I think, to bring money and economy into the area and give people purpose and pride, I guess.
And jobs, things to do, valuable things to do.
A lot to be done.
Well, and creative, you know, the whole creative industries, all those creative industries that have fallen by the wayside, fallen apart. I'm very worried
about everything. Yes. Well, I guess it all starts where we are right now here, doesn't it? You just do what you can.
Exactly. So I do what I can. I do my little bit. Run around with me food bank collections.
Keep up the good work. It's great.
Get warm clothes and donations for the drop-in centre in town. Think about homeless people.
Yes, because food and warmth and clothing are the start. It's absolutely basic before you can do anything else. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Steph. Thank you for taking us on a journey through your life. And if anybody wants to help Steph or come and visit, the details are on the website.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye. So lovely to talk. Bye.